Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. This meeting is called to order, and I kindly ask our City Administrator, Stephanie Dawkins, to please take the roll call.
Bruno,
Bruno here.
Burkhart,
Burkhart here.
Ruby,
Ruby here.
Caven,
Haven here.
Gilberg,
Gilbert here.
Kosarog,
Kosarog here.
Maladra,
Ladder here.
Marks,
Mark's here.
McGowan,
McGowan here.
Swanson.
Swanson here.
We begin our council meeting, ladies and gentlemen, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask our Assistant City Administrator, Mr. Ben McCready, to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McCready. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's meeting is being conducted virtually in compliance with the governor's executive orders prohibiting in-person gatherings of greater than 10 people under the newly issued Tier 2 Enhanced Mitigation Phase. As such, it is not practical or prudent to allow the public, press, or other interested parties to be present in council chamber. Staff members are also participating virtually, with the exception of the city administrator to my left and assistant city administrator to my right, who are necessary to assist with the online and virtual experience. As a requirement of the Open Meetings Act, I am required to be physically present at the meeting location. This meeting may be viewed via live stream on YouTube or the public access channels, AT&T Channel 99 or Comcast Channel 10, or by accessing the meeting directly through the link provided on the agenda. You will also notice tonight we are incorporating a scroll on your television screen and or on your computer screen. That scroll provides you the opportunity to comment on this meeting if you so choose by sending an email to publiccomment@geneva.il.us at any time during the meeting. You will also note that scroll contains the GoToWebinar address and meeting ID should you choose to join the meeting using that technology. Simply go to the GoToWebinar and enter the code of this meeting and you will be joining us. Please note that comments received during the meeting will be acknowledged and placed into the record of the meeting, but will not be read aloud during the meeting. And ladies and gentlemen, on a sad note, I'd like to ask the council and the community's indulgence to remember a colleague of ours who passed away recently. His name was Dave Abram. Dave worked for the city of Geneva from 1972 to 2002, 30 years. He joined the city of Geneva shortly after graduating from St. Charles East High School. He worked in the street department. He obviously contributed a heck of a lot to our community. He loved his job. He loved the people he worked with. He grew up, ultimately lived in the Elburn area, and most recently sold his farm, the family farm, to the Kane County Forest Preserve District, Elburn Forest District, for its continuous and perpetual preservation. So to the Abram family, and of course to our friends at Public Works who knew him, and all of you who perhaps had the blessing of also knowing him, we mourn his loss and we ask just for a moment of silence to remember him and honor him. Thank you, everyone. There are no public hearings or special items or presentations. Item 4, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments this evening by any member of the council? Seeing none or sensing none, item 5 is the omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine by this council and can be considered and voted upon with one motion. Is there such a motion?
Swanson, so moved.
Alderman Swanson makes the motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Mark
Bruno
seconds.
seconds.
Ooh, that was a tough one. I believe, it was either Marks or Bruno or Maladra. I think we give it to McGowan. A roll call vote is necessary, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Bruno,
Bruno, aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Haven, aye.
Kilberg,
Gilbert, aye.
Kosarog,
Kasserag, aye.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Mark's aye.
McGowan,
McGowan, I.
Swanson.
Swanson, aye.
Item 5, the omnibus agenda has been adopted with a vote of 10 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 absent. We skip down to item number 9, which is other items and correspondence, and 9A is reserved for this evening, as was explained by the city administrator in her presentation regarding the budget, to discuss, if anything, the fiscal year 2022 draft budget. Are there any items any member of the council would like to bring up with respect to that draft document?
I would note that we had some questions submitted that we did respond to, and they have been posted on the city's website. They're posted both on the tonight's agenda website and also on the budget page.
I do have a question or a comment.
Yes, sir. Alderman Swanson.
Thank you, Mayor. In the budget, obviously, it's an unusual year, both the current year and next year. And we're in sort of an odd pandemic time where we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So that makes budgeting more difficult. Certainly, revenues are challenged because of that, and we're anticipating some revenue growth that may or may not occur. That said, I'm uncomfortable increasing staff levels, particularly the police officer, whereas I realize we approved it a year ago. However, I don't believe that in uncertain economic times that it's a conservative approach to budget that addition. And I would prefer to see that added later if finances continue to improve as we anticipate. So I would propose and would like to know if the council would agree that we remove that addition to staff in this pass of the budget. We can always add that back later if finances improve.
Anyone wish to speak?
Question?
Alderman Alderman Maladra, question?
Yeah, so is it really increasing staff, or is this replacement that effectively keeps our staffing level flat?
So the position was approved in fiscal year 21 budget. As you recall, that budget was passed in February. The pandemic hit in March. At that time, I spoke with the chief and we deferred hiring that replacement. We have still deferred hiring that. At this time, the PD has one retirement coming up the beginning of February, a second retirement coming up the beginning of May. So technically, can I say it keeps us flat? Yes, because we haven't been fully staffed in the police department for some time due to turnover and retirements and the way the eligibility list works. And further, if we hire an officer who has not previously gone to the academy, we also have to wait to make sure there's a spot in the academy and we can get them in there. So everything is contingent upon a bunch of other things. The academy wasn't operating during most of 21, and they have resumed or will be resuming operations, but with nearly half the class size. So again, while the position is approved, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be filled automatically. We would actually fill those vacancies that occur first from the retirements, and then ultimately, when there's the opportunity, we would fill that third position, assuming again that the revenues are coming in and we're able to afford it.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Maladra?
Well, only kind of. So, if everything was rosy and we didn't have concerns about revenue because of the situation with the virus. I take it then that what you're saying is we would fill this position and then we would fill on the retirement when it occurred, and then we would fill again on the May retirement, assuming candidates were available?
Assuming candidates were available and there was space in the academy. But right now, I will tell you, we have no candidates available. The Board of Fire and Police Commission, we just did testing in December to create the new list. The Board of Fire and Police Commission will be interviewing the last week of January, first week of February. That then establishes a list. And even then, there's still a process when there's a vacancy. So I guess what I was saying is ultimately we fill the vacancy we have when we're able to fill it, whether that be this position or the retirement position. I don't foresee a point where we would fill all three immediately at the same time.
But in this budget, as far as the police department is concerned, we budgeted for the retirement, but that position we kept a 12-month budget for because you assumed it would be filled. I guess what I'm getting at is, does the estimates for the police department include one employee more than what we have currently?
So yes, but it's the same budget as we budgeted last fiscal year. So yes,
Understood.
it includes one vacancy.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay, my
Thanks.
apologies.
There is no motion on the floor, folks, but I will entertain questions with respect to the statements made by Alderman Swanson. I believe Alderman Ruby, did you have your hand up? Yeah, Alderwoman Ruby?
Thank you. So just for clarification, so the position that we are looking to hire is strictly a new person straight out of the academy versus an experienced employee?
No, we have a Board of Fire and Police Commission. We require testing, and then they get put on an eligibility list. On that eligibility list, you may have experienced officers and you may have officers who are not experienced. We hire off the list based on their test scores, their interview scores, and their interviews with the department. So it could potentially be an experienced officer. It could potentially be an officer who doesn't have experience.
Okay, so
We don't
is
do
there a
lateral
specific-
hires currently. So
Is there an amount budgeted? Like, obviously, there's a difference between a beginning salary and, someone with 30 years experience.
They're
So-
under a union contract, so the contract dictates the wages. We do have some flexibility in hiring, I think at step 2 or at step 3 for an officer with experience. But again, with retirements that weren't contemplated when the budget was created, with things that happened during the year, I still think the budget is probably the worst case scenario that would be spent over a full 12-month period.
Okay. And if we were to put this process on hold, I don't know, Stephanie, if you can answer this, or if Chief Passarelli is available. I'm curious if staff feels that would put our police department at a disadvantage
So
from a
Chief-
staffing perspective.
Chief Passarelli is not on the phone this evening. What I would say is, we have not been fully staffed for more than a year, because every time we get close to being fully staffed, then we end up either with a retirement or a resignation or whatever. It was the chief's belief and the council's belief when we passed last budget that this last officer is the officer that was approved, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It was originally approved 10, 12 or 15 years ago. Then the economic downturn came and we didn't fill it. And then we finally started getting to the point where we might be able to fill it again. It got approved again, and then the pandemic hit. So whether, I think that's kind of a judgment call, whether it's at a disadvantage. It is a position that they felt that was needed to be able to efficiently operate the department.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council regarding the topic? Alderman Kilberg?
Stephanie, could you give us a little overview as it relates to permitting and inspection? I think there's some changes taking place there as far as personnel. And is it possible that there might be some benefit in delaying some of those hires into next year?
We have a resignation that took place. The employee left last week, who is our one and only building inspector, along with our building commissioner. And then we had Laura Hager, administrative assistant, who's retired. We have reclassified that position to it's the same pay rate, but is a permit technician. And quite frankly, that division had another position that had been approved several years ago that we've never filled, and we are at the point where everybody is doing everything they can do, and I believe it would be a disservice to our permitting process and to our customer service to not fill those positions.
I know that we've done some outsourcing as it relates to inspection. Is it possible that there might be savings as it relates to outsourcing the inspection piece?
I don't know the answer to that. We outsourced the plumbing inspector because we weren't able to find a combination building and plumbing inspector when we advertised for that position on several occasions. The plumbing inspection is a pass-through cost, so that tends to wash out. As far as I know that other communities have outsourced and then brought it back in-house. You know, it's all a matter of what control you want and customer service.
Okay. As far as we look at 2020, I would anticipate, what was the number of permits that were issued, and was that, did we see a spike in 2020, or was it flat, or did it actually decrease versus 2019? And again, I don't need exact numbers. I'm just asking for a trend line there.
I don't have the information in front of me. As I recall, I had provided an update to the council a few months ago, and it was running pretty much on par, if not greater than, the permitting we had the previous year. So we have not seen a huge decline in permitting, for sure. We are in the process of updating our performance metrics, which measures some of that, so I will have that information. I just don't have it with me this evening.
That's fine. I just was wondering if just the level of permitting, if it had decreased, if there might be some merit in delaying filling that position in that department. But you've answered my questions. Thank you.
Anyone else on the council? Alderwoman Burkhart, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to Alderman Swanson's discussion, I too would like to at least see more of a discussion or maybe a response from Chief Passarelli about this police officer position. I do understand we approved it last February, but you know, within a couple of weeks, the whole world changed. It's unfortunate timing, and I know it sounds like it's been something they've been wanting for a long time, but it seems like the one position that maybe we could put on hold. And you know, if our projections turn out on the optimistic side, we move forward with that process, which obviously is a lengthy one anyway, getting someone in the academy and on the lists and things. But that's the one that I guess has a little less pain to me than even what Alderman Kilberg's talking about with permitting. It seems like just anecdotal. It seems like people who are investing in their homes and really kind of because staying home, they're doing a lot of work on homes from what I can see just from the yellow signs on windows. But the police officer position is one that I am more open to pulling out of the budget, or at least having more of a discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Burkhart. Anyone else on the council? Alderman Kasserag.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Just in regards to Alderman Swanson's question, I wasn't here on the council in February, so I was just going to kind of say what Alderwoman Burkhart said, and if we could invite Chief Passarelli to a future meeting to hear him talk about that, I would appreciate that. And it sounds like maybe that would be insightful to the rest of the council. So that's just a suggestion for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Dawkins?
I just wanted to follow up. Rita is actually on the line, and she forwarded me the building division performance measures. So in fiscal year 19, I'll look at residential to start. They did 940 permits. In 20, they did 904, and we're on target to hit 1,100. So to give you some example, they're all separate, so I can't do the math in my head, but you'll see they've been fairly consistent.
Anyone else in the council regarding any of the budget? Alderwoman McGowan.
Thank you, Mayor Burns. I know that Chief Passarelli has come before City Council in the past, maybe within the past year, if I remember correctly, and he did speak to us about the police staffing level and the added expense that's incurred by extra overtime pay, the difficulty with staffing, especially if someone is, say, on sick leave or for any number of reasons. I remember he already went over the reasoning behind why he and the department felt that staffing should be like at an optimal level and adding on that staff position or adding on that position that we're discussing now. So I definitely would like for him to come and kind of repeat some of that. I'm imagining that not much of that has changed. So just wanted to remind everyone that there is an added cost to the city by potentially not filling that position that was budgeted for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member wish to address any of the issues related to the draft fiscal year 2022 budget?
I have another question.
If Alderman Maladra, no one objects if I recognize him for a second time, unless anyone who has not yet spoken wishes to do so for a first time. Alderman Maladra?
Okay, so for me, I'll take it as understood that the department heads would not be trying to include in the budget filling a position if they did not feel that it was necessary or if they felt that they could continue to do without it. As Alderman McGowan says, we have heard about the different types of costs that we accrue from not filling the position. And so I think there's something there. So what I would like to understand more about is what is it we are attempting to do by deferring the hire? I understand, at least to me, it's easier to defer hiring somebody now than having to let people go later if things go south. So one of the things I hope to hear as we continue discussing the budget is how conservative our estimates for revenue are and how likely it is that we're going to see a worse case than what the budget already shows. But again, so assuming that the department heads know what they're asking for when they ask, I guess I ask my partners on the council, what is it we're trying to accomplish by deferring the hire?
Thank you, sir. Alderman Swanson for a second time, unless anyone who has not yet spoken wishes to do so. Alderman Swanson, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess to respond to Alderman Maladra's question, the deferral is in reaction to the uncertain times. If just seeing the news every day, municipalities are laying off people right and left. You don't see municipalities adding staff. Here we have a position that's been deferred in some cases for 20, it appears for 20 years and certainly for the last year. And I'm saying we ought to defer it one more year until we know we're on certain footing. Because you're absolutely right. Once we hire that person, it will be much more difficult to let that person go if we have. So if we haven't had this position for 20 years, economic times are very uncertain, what's the rush to get a person in-house right now? That's my point.
Thank you, sir. Any other council member regarding any portion of the draft fiscal year 2022 budget? Ms. Dawkins?
So, and again, I would encourage the council, if as you're reviewing the budget, you have questions, please submit them to me. Ideally, if you could submit them by Friday at 10 a.m., then we can respond to them and get them posted to the website on Monday before the Monday's evening's meeting.
And we will indeed be inviting Chief Passarelli to join us on the 25th, which is a week from yesterday. Anything else by anyone regarding item 9A? There's no action necessary. Oh, Alderwoman Burkhart? Yes.
I guess, yeah, I would say, I guess it's all incumbent on all of us if we have these kind of staffing questions to try to give a heads up to Stephanie so that any other department heads can be here if we need to talk about this. And I agree with Alderman Swanson. You know, I hope things are rosy. I hope the vaccine rollout speeds up. I hope that people return to their spending and eating out habits when it's safe to do so. I think even in fact of just the uncertainty, and we don't really know when vaccination levels are going to get what they need to be, is we just don't know if people are going to return to their original habits. I think all of our lives have been so upended by this. I do really wonder in terms of shopping and eating out and large weddings and large reunions and large birthday parties. I do think we're really still, unfortunately in the thick of this. I mean, when I get the email that the 2021 Swedish Days Parade is canceled, I mean, that's just kind of eye-opening. And I think about how naive. I was talking with my coworkers just today. We were talking about the 1 year anniversary of this coming up from when everything went into shutdown not so long in the future in March, and how naive we all thought. We thought we'd all stay home for a couple of weeks and we'd be over it. So I really do support Alderman Swanson just thinking carefully about this, and I would rather defer a hire than to have to lay people off or to cut benefits or to cut salaries. So I guess I'll just pledge to try to raise those questions earlier in the process for next week in case there's anybody else we want to appear at the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on item 9A? Without objection, we'll move on to item 10, and that is municipal bills for payment. We kindly ask our city administrator to read the bills in their aggregate for our consideration this evening.
Okay, bills for payment total $4,448,519.44.
Bruno moves that we pay the bills as read. The individual items that add up to that amount can be found in tonight's packet on the city website.
Alderman Bruno makes the motion to pay the bills as presented. Those bills are available on the city's website and in your council packets. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Kosarog makes the second. Any questions or comments at all regarding the bills to be paid? Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Burkhart,
Aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, aye.
Caven,
Haven, aye.
Kilberg,
Silver guy.
Kosrog,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
aye.
Swanson,
Swanson, aye.
Bruno.
Bruno, aye.
The motion to pay the bills as presented has been approved with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. We jump to item 13, new business or public comment. I will defer to our city administrator and assistant city administrator to determine whether there's anyone joining us or has emailed us regarding their desire to comment.
I did receive one email during the meeting from Alderman McGowan just testing the system, and I think she can confirm that I received the email.
Excellent. Mr. McCready?
And we have no one joining us remotely this evening.
Thank you, sir. New business from the members of the council. I will happily entertain a motion to go into closed session regarding the topic of sale of property. I will entertain a motion, a second, and then a roll call to do that.
Bruno so moves.
Alderman
Marks
Bruno
so
makes the
seconds.
motion, and the second was made by
Marks.
Alderman Marks. Roll call, Ms. Dawkins.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Haven, aye.
Kilberg,
Kilburg, aye.
Kosarog,
Pastor, guy.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
McGowan, aye.
Swanson,
Swanson, aye.
Bruno, Bruno,
Can you
Burkhart,
hear me?
Yes.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
thank you.
With a vote of 10 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 absent, we are going to adjourn to closed session to discuss sale of property. The cameras will be turned off
And no action will be taken.
and no action will be taken. Upon conclusion of the closed session, we'll return to this open session and the cameras will be turned back on. So, ladies and gentlemen, just pause for a moment and then reconnect members of the council as you're able. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in open session. I would entertain a motion to return to open session.
McGowan so moves.
Alderman McGowan makes the motion. I believe Alderman Swanson made the second. A roll call vote is in order.
Kilberg,
Kilburg here.
Kosarog,
Pastor, here.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
That's what I was confused.
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
McGowan, aye.
Swanson,
Swanson, aye.
Bruno,
Bruno, aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven.
Haven, aye.
We're back in open session, ladies and gentlemen. Anything anyone wishes to share for the benefit of the council and the community? Otherwise, the entertainment of a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Marks so move.
Alderman Marks makes the motion to adjourn. Ms. Dawkins, please take the roll.
Kosarog,
Pastor, guy.
Maladra,
Maladra, aye.
Marks,
Marks, aye.
McGowan,
McGowan, aye.
Swanson,
Swanson, aye.
Bruno,
Bruno, aye.
Burkhart,
Burkhart, aye.
Ruby,
Ruby, I.
Caven,
Haven, aye.
Kilberg.
Kilburg, aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a safe evening.